The day before Thanksgiving in 2020 was just like any other normal day for me. I had been working afternoon, so I worked till midnight the day before, and then I woke up about 10:30 to about 10 missed phone calls between coworkers, close friends, other friends that were coworkers at the department, my boss. And like any veteran guy, you never call your boss back first. You call your buddy at the department to find out what's going on. I called him back, and he goes, "Hey, did you hear?" He didn't say anything. He said, "Hey, did you hear?" I go, "No." And at that moment, I knew it was something serious. And then that's when he told me that Sergeant Chris Hampton had taken his own life on duty. Chris was a very close friend of mine. We had ridden together in a car for probably 3 years on midnights, and then we jumped over to a border crime team and had worked the same team for probably another 3 years after that. Super close. I stood in his wedding. He stood in mine. Our kids were born 16 weeks apart. So it was just one of those things where, you don't know a person before the job, but then they become your best friend while you're working. And Chris truly was one of my best friends. The Wednesday morning before Thanksgiving, from my accounts that I had spoken with everybody else, was like any other day. He had come in. He was a sergeant at the time. He addressed his team at roll call, went to the office, typed a few notes on the computer, and then got in his patrol car and left for the day, like nothing was wrong. About 15 minutes later, after he left the station, he had driven down to a parking lot in an abandoned building about a quarter mile west of the police station. On the dashboard of his car, he laid out some personal effects, a suicide letter, and then went underneath the overhang of that abandoned building and took his own life with his service weapon. The impact around the department was definitely shattering, if I could put it into one word. Everybody that knew Chris, every wake, every funeral you go to, you hear, "Oh, he's such a great guy." But Chris really lit up that department. He was one of those guys that would always joke, would always have a smile on his face. If you didn't have a smile, he would make sure that he tried to put one on. In this line of work, law enforcement especially, people have egos, people have attitudes and cliques, and it's very hard to make it through a 25-year career without someone not liking you. And I personally don't believe anybody disliked Chris. He was just that type of person. So for that to happen, personally, I took it extremely hard. It took me a long time to get through. I'm not going to say get over, but get through. And to be completely honest, I'm not sure if I'm still completely through it yet. And the department, same thing. A lot of people were affected from, people who knew Chris, worked with Chris, got hired in with Chris, were subordinates to Chris, just to the people that saw him on a day-to-day basis. He really, truly affected everybody. We now have a run in his honor for mental health that we do every October. And I would be very surprised to say, even today, the loss of his life is still felt around that department. Every first responding profession has that stigma of reaching out for help. We always want to help others. You can sit here and preach stigma all day long and how we need to break it. And I think now in 2024, we're doing a pretty good job of at least trying to reach out and let people know that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. But the importance of just knowing that one person, even in a passing conversation, can change the outcome of someone's life if they are going down a path like this is so important. I told myself after Chris died that I would never not have that hard conversation again. Whether I felt it, whether someone addressed me, said, "Hey, check in on our buddy, check on this guy and this girl on nights." I made sure that I promised myself for Chris that I would never not ask those hard questions. Because just speaking from a police officer's perspective, you chase a bad guy in the alley, you kick in the door on the search warrant. That's light work. That's easy stuff. But really to address your coworkers and your friends that are going through, whether it's a mental health crisis or something personal in their lives. That's the hardest part for us to address as people, because we are type A, because we want to help others, but we don't want to help ourselves sometimes.